The Numinous Podcast with Carmen Spaniola.
Hi there, and welcome to the Numinous Podcast, where we have interesting conversations with everyday folks about the mystery of life. I'm your host, Carmen Spaniola, joining you from the lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations, recently known as Victoria, BC, Canada. Sarah Durham Wilson is the author of Maiden to Mother, Unlocking Our Archetypal Journey into the Mature Feminine. Her own mother died when Sarah was just a teenager, and life sort of spiraled from there for a while, but she came to professional success through journalism and her stints writing for the likes of Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, Spin magazine. She also found her voice on social media a decade ago as Do It Girl, a popular blog / Facebook presence for young women seeking a spiritual experience. But it was hitting rock bottom, struggling with substance use and just kind of chaotic dysfunction, and then becoming a mother herself, through which Sarah came to understand the trauma of being an unmothered woman. She's since deepened her studies, diving into the works of Marion Woodman and apprenticing to the myths of Inanna and Ereshkigal, and devoting herself to the work of elevating the mature feminine, as well as her activism work, her intersectional feminism and decolonization, divesting from whiteness and the eradication of patriarchy. I want to thank Sarah for being so open and honest about her experience, and just a mild content warning for those who've struggled with bereavement or drug use, abandonment trauma, just that whole complex of pain, as you can imagine, that this episode may be a little hard at times, but I hope you'll find it helpful and even hopeful more often than not. Please welcome to the podcast, Sarah Durham Wilson. So Sarah, what identities do you lead with?
Did you prepare me for this question?
Life has prepared you, Sarah. Life has prepared the mother.
Here, we go with like forged or crucified you for this, or oh yes, I'm a priestess, I'm a warrior, I'm a leader, I'm a mother, I'm a lover, I'm an earth steward, I'm an eco-feminist, I'm a witch, I'm a goddess, I'm a teacher. That feels good. I'm a writer, but I really do. I'm a storyteller. Big difference. I found out through patriarchal publishing. Big difference there.
Writer and storyteller. Oh yeah, I feel that. So, okay, you said a lot of things.
How was that? Was that a good answer for the first answer?
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Is it okay if I and this isn't at all, the quality of my looking is not harsh or interrogative. This is genuine curiosity. When you say, for instance,
parse through all that.
Parse through it. Let's start with the first one. Priestess jumps out to me. And so how would you define that? How do you know that you're a priestess?
I'm so glad we said yes to this podcast. All right. Because I love these questions. Okay. Priestess, because that is not always the jam. I'll tell you that. That's not always my experience. So priestess is a right-hand woman of the goddess. She fights for the mother, and she rallies the troops for the mother and speaks for the mother and heals for the mother and leads for the mother. So she walks in this world embodied as mother in her flavor of priestess with her skills as priestess. But it's a life of service and leadership.
And are there archetypes, perhaps in unseen realms, perhaps deities, or maybe even living icons that you would say, and so you look at this woman, she is a priestess?
Me.
As we have said, and so it is.
Yes. You gotta claim your shit, you know what I mean? So yeah, me. You don't wait around for other people to tell you who you are anymore. I just want to stop at me.
Okay, good. So the follow-up question.
That so deeply in such a real way, and right now it's all I can see, because I'm in this huge initiation around super claiming that role. So I'm just in that's what I do, and because I've moved out of patriarchal consciousness to the best of my ability and ever a lifelong walk out of it, I don't compare really or see other I don't focus on it. I'm in the dark doing my work. So I
Mhm.
don't have like peers. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
I'm that self-actualized that I literally have left all like who's doing what behind.
Yeah. So do you think of, but when you're like looking to the spirit realm for a model, like I think many people would be like, oh, Inanna. But of course,
I
I can
thought you were
also,
talking about present day women.
yeah, or other unseen realms.
Okay. Oh, unseen realms. Oh, I mean, so many of the goddesses, Inanna. Well, so there, no, Inanna I call Inanna an initiator
Mm.
and a rebirth guide. And Freya, I'd call a warrior and a queen. Black Madonna, I would call, mother of all. Kali Ma, I would call truth and fierce love and awakening. So yeah, I mean, the priestess archetype is something that, as I moved out of the maiden phase of my witchhood, it's the me to we that we talk about in Maiden to Mother. So now, like, I'm not just doing spells for myself. I'm literally bringing huge covens together to do. I'm just going to do this because I want to show you. I'm literally doing pulling huge covens together with the force of the goddess, all visualizing, seeing the same thing, standing for the sacred, moving the women to the front line of their life, to the front line of the world, so it's like a galvanizing of the mother within and that's a certain way I priestess. So I can't speak of ways others priestess. I rally and raise the women into warriors of the great mother, and that all I'm doing is helping them remember who they actually are.
And so then you claimed a little later, I am a goddess. And what do you mean when you say I am a goddess?
Well, you're a goddess. All women are daughters of the great mother. We're all of the same mother, and the great mother was the goddess. What does that make us? We are carved from the same claver. We and the earth and the moon share the same healing and regenerative properties and cyclical cycles of seasons and phases. The earth, the great mother is the goddess, the earth mother is the goddess, the children of the earth mother are the goddess. And so what does that mean is that pre-patriarchally, all women, within the culture of the Celtic feminine wheel that I work with and the Nordic wheel that I work with, is that we knew we served the great mother. We knew we were carved in her likeness. We each had a gift to serve here. We each had a purpose, and those were our goddess-born gifts. And that's what connected us to the great mother, is these beautiful healing gifts that just, in our flavor. And it's like, for me to come into the woman is to come into the goddess. And that's why I did this work. I waited for my mother. I remembered that all women were the goddess when I was, newly in this patriarchal world. And I waited to see her rise in my mother, and she never fucking did. Right. And so my work is to raise the goddess in women as well, so the patriarchal version of a woman is garbage and a colonial construct to victimize and make women, infantilize women, make them dependent. And the power and the depth of our ancestor mothers were goddesses, were warriors, were queens, destructors, creators, and that's what I like to wake, the pre-patriarchal woman who is the daughter of the mother.
How do you define mother?
Which, the big M or the little M?
The little M.
A biological mother?
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering.
Okay, little M. Little M for me is the mother, whether she was adoptive, biological, guardian, in the mother figure in a house in which you grew up in. Okay.
And so when you are in your book, Maiden to Mother, you're talking about this journey, but it's a spiritual journey. And so how do you help those who've chosen not to have children, or are deciding I'm not going to caregive in that patriarchal bullshit way, and I want to have this more fulsome experience that is not the patriarchal heteronormative one? So if they're like, yeah, the word mother doesn't really resonate with me, and yet you may have things that are applicable.
Guardian. I love guardian.
Guardian.
I'm my daughter's protectress and guardian and she-wolf, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I love guardian.
And if they didn't have kids, do you see that is still a mother archetype, or is it something different if they're like creating, or they are, how are they members in this, or does it apply? Like, are you talking to people who are caregiving other humans, or are you also talking to people who are not?
Do you know the answer? And are you asking me to pull this out together? Or are you
I'm genuinely asking.
As a journalist, I'm just wondering, like, is this to get the answer that I'm like, it's so, because I just think it's really interesting.
I'm genuinely wondering, are you applying this archetypal journey to people who are not caregiving children?
When I say mother, archetypal mother, I'm talking about our seasonal reality as a human. I'm talking about that every human has and if you come to me and want to work with me and like this whole life stages thing I do, and claiming our seasonal reality and knowing that we have a birthright to live each season of our lives fully, which means die to the last season to come fully into the next one, so that we have a spring, a summer, a fall, and a winter. I'm in the Celtic, tradition. It's Maiden, Mother, Crone, but they miss this Maga Empress time, like right here in the Northeast. I'm in it, where everything is just like, I'm gonna go out in a bang, like the most glorious way, like fully like Empress out, like before I settle back in the crone,
Yeah.
The kids are out of the nest, or I'm out of fucks, or whatever it all is, and you still have that active energy, right? That lively energy, which I clearly have a lot of, and I'm always working. I have a ton of Kundalini, and it freaks people out. Like, I'm always trying to ground, but I do my best. So your seasonal reality of mother is also the full moon archetype. Like, this is my time to give of my gifts and claim of my space and be unmovable. The full rose, like, I am fully open to life, fully offering my gifts. The rooted mother tree, like, unmovable, giving of my gifts, the shade, receive, I am the shade and the shelter. But I also receive deeply from the roots, and I'm deeply nourished, and I offer that. And, we live in the cyclical way. So really, like, a mother for me is like full moon, summer of my life, glory time, and also like so rooted. So it's the middle of one's life. Is meant to be the time when we do root and give of our gifts. Like, we have found ourselves. This has nothing to do with biological mothering. I have to say it over and over and over again, because mother is such a trigger word in the patriarchy, when the feminine has been so degraded into this death mother, abusive mother, absent mother, addicted mother, fragile mother, overbearing mother, that before this, like, healthy earth wolf mother lover warrior archetype that I'm bringing back through this work, that we're bringing back through this work. So yeah, I say, it is one thing to be a mother. It is another thing to be in mother, in the archetype of, I am fully bloomed. I am mother to myself and mother to this world, and meaning, like, I stand for this world. I care for this fucking world. I hear its cries. I don't turn away. I run to the roar. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
That. So, but it's like, I got me and I got this world. Like, I'm sovereign and interconnected.
And so, is there an archetype then of the unmothered woman that you would recognize, just like just talking to someone for a few minutes or like a little while? What are some of the signs of the maiden or the unmothered woman? Is there a difference between those two?
Let's start with signs of wounded maidenness.
Okay.
It started with mine, it started with realizing, where were the women? Like, Bell Hooks in All About Love has this great passage about in her family, in her Black family, they were talking about how miraculous it was when women got older. Like culturally, like how wise they got, how revered they became, you know, like the trees outside, like the oldest in the forest are the most wisest and beautiful and most revered, right? The most, you know, and she was like, I couldn't wait to grow old the way these women were speaking of it. And then in my like fragile white patriarchal household, it was like, how many neck tucks can, you know, can we talk about shedding, or like, you know, how can we stay young on the outside, which keeps us frozen on the inside. And so like I heard this term woman thrown around all the time, but I didn't see it. I saw everyone terrified and reactive and addicted and depressed, and by the time I got to by the time I got to mid-30s, I was like, I'm supposed to be grown up. I'm supposed to be a woman, but I'm constantly surrounded by, and I am reactive. I am vain. I am insecure. I'm very fragile. I'm always seeking out. I'm utterly atrophied on the inside because I'm focused constantly on the outside. All I think about is what everybody thinks of me. I am utterly reliant on everybody's external opinion of me. So my life is like, you know, just up and down, up and down. I have no idea what confidence it is. And this is when I'm, you know, kind of like a little hot thing on the spiritual sea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Did you have a different brand before? Sorry.
Do It Girl. Yeah, my
Do
pen name.
It Girl. That's what it is.
Yeah. And it was very Maiden. I mean, do it,
girl.
no,
Do it, girl. Yeah.
do when, like, for me as a woman, the emphasis is always on how I'm being. You know, it's like, and so, but girls, maidens are seekers and doers. That is their time. So it was appropriate.
Yeah.
So it was seasonally appropriate until it wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now we're little girls walking around in women's bodies and we're reactive, terrified. Now I'm throwing, and, you know, competing with each other, terrified of each other, competitive. Don't trust each other, don't trust themselves. And now, you know, around that time, I'm throwing retreats and we're like, well, women are going to save the world. And then like the women showing up at these retreats are like, it's like glorified sleepovers, like cat fights and bullying and cliques and mean girls and like, boo, you whore, you know? And like, I'm like, okay, these women are my reflection. What is this reflection? And I was like, and that's when I started to be like, okay, Marion Woodman talks about the mature feminine. I know I am not that. So I am the immature feminine. And why am I stuck in this phase? What is this phase? Blah, blah, blah. I started putting it all together. I'm like, well, I'm a maiden that never made it into archetypal mother, which is, then I had to piece together what that was through our ancestors, what I felt them, what I saw them doing, what I read about them doing. These fucking animal like women that could like break bears with their bare hands mid building their own thatch hut in a rainstorm. And I was like, wait a second, this doesn't feel real. This construct of my false, you know, femininity is like, I mean, these women were hard. We are actually hard fucking core. We don't miss that. We all miss it. We want to go from terrified to terrifying. We're ready. And so yeah, around that time I would write all these traits down. You know, reactive, moving from reactive to responsive is like 101 for maturity. You know, and that comes with a deep self-confidence, a deep rootedness, a deep self-peace, self-trust, boundaries, you know, and this is all the work is getting in there and remothering yourself. So, and so an unmothered woman is basically like, you know, a leaf trembling in the wind. Like she is the candle that gets blown out by any gust. You know, because she's never had someone behind her saying, I'll always be here. No one will ever put out your light. You go out there, you live those fucking dreams and you try every single one. And if you fall down, I'm right here to pick you back up. I believe in everything. You are capable of anything you want. Every breath you take is a miracle. I love you. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Try, and if you fail, I'll help you get back up, and one day you will fly. I will be there. Like boom. Like I know who I am. My mother has sung my gifts alive. She has told me who I am. So this world cannot tell me and cannot break me. And she, I have someone always in my corner, and then there's those of us that went out with, like, my own mother couldn't love me. She must've hated me. How could anyone love me if my own mother couldn't love me? I'm a burden. Any scrap of love I'll take. I'm used to abuse. So that's my norm. So bosses, blah, blah, blah. Until we almost die. And then we're like, and then until I tried to kill myself. And then it's like, what was missing? The mother, but not my mother. What am I talking about? The great mother. Who's that? What are her attributes? Where is she? What did they do to her?
So you had a difficult relationship with your mother before she died of cancer when you and your twin sister were 17. And you said earlier, like, where were the women? And I'm very curious, your book is beautiful. And there was this gap for me where I was like, where are all the adults? What literally happened in the year after she died? Like, when you look back now, are you like, oh, there were some surrogates? Like, I don't know. I can look back. I'm estranged with my mom for the last 13 years. And so but I can look back and be like, oh, I did have the mother of my best friend. I had that teacher. I had people. But did you have any people, or were you pretty much on your own from 17?
Yeah, from there I didn't. I just had alcohol and yeah.
And so you were trying to figure this all out, 17 years old, with your sister. And so you just started being a party girl. Like, you still managed to get a job at Rolling Stone. You still managed some things. So, like, what was that year after like?
All of my Maiden wiles. I went straight to the school where she had been. My mother was the chief of staff at the University of Virginia, and I did not want to go there. I was hell-bent on going to Kenyon for writing. But I had been in denial that my mother was that sick because I was a child. I had no reference for it. But still, I was blamed for those not understanding that. And by these uninitiated adults, and so I kind of just kicked a suitcase down the street to this college I didn't want to go to. And I was this kid who just lost her mom, and in a culture that speaks not of grief or death, especially, what is this, 20 some years ago. And I just started to drink. I was around all these really rich women and rich girls, and I had no mother. I had no money really, because we weren't going to get that until we were in our 20s, and then I wasted it anyway. But yeah, I was poor. My dad and I weren't in a good relationship. He was with another woman, and I just got lost. That's the beginning of the end. Like, it's like walking into like the darkest fucking maze of my life.
I can feel like my breasts hurting right now thinking of you as a child. Like my son is 18, but I'm just like, oh my God, this lost child. I just want to like bring 17 years
I can possibly get without dying, because I did try to kill myself, and I had a Kundalini awakening at 31, but I got as lost as a woman as anyone can get.
For how many years?
From 17 to 31.
It's
all a blur.
So on this journey to become the mother that you never had, before you hit your Kundalini awakening, which I want to get to in a second, you probably had a lot of ideas formed about who your mother was. At 17, you think you know who your mother is. And then you're going through your 20s. And maybe, I'm curious, looking back now, being the age you are, being a mother yourself, have any of your ideas about your mother changed? Like, how did you see her through those maiden eyes at the time? And do you see her now on the other side, initiated into the mother? Do you see her differently through your mother eyes?
Yeah, I see my mother in 380 or whatever the math is on that. When you go all the way
Right. Around and a little more. Yeah.
did I add a smidge? That would be my ADHD or autism or neurodivergence. Just throw something at the patriarchy to say I'm not patriarchal and get me out of here. You have to binary anything, whatever you want to call it. Just say I don't have your consciousness. Yeah, I mean, my mother and I have done massive healing work. From 17 to 31, all I did was like drink, fuck, and die. Like I didn't focus on, no one told me how to focus on my mom. No one told me how to grieve. No one told me, oh, well, now you're in the underworld. Allow Ereshkigal to care for you. Bring your council of women around you to hold you while you grieve, weep, and die. No one, the shit I do with women all the time now. I am literally, my life is just literally walking. Necessity is the mother of invention. Over and over again. What did I need that women, and what did I need? And so, I was just thrown to the mechanical wolves of a patriarchal culture, a death culture, a rape culture, a war culture, a machinist culture. And I was a neurodivergent, grieving witch. And but the work with my mother started like hardcore. I guess like I got my book deal for Sounds True for Maiden to Mother about 4 years ago, and I had started teaching the work about like 6.5 years ago, about like this bridge from maiden to mother and the archetype of the mother, the archetype of the wounded maiden, the archetype of the healthy maiden, and all the different archetypes of like shadow mother and all that, along with Marion Woodman's work. And I've come very full circle in that because there's a woman named Syl Reynolds who sat with Marion Woodman for 20 years before she died. And now I sit with Syl Reynolds. So we keep Marion's work alive. And long story, even longer. I think it was when I was building the mother archetype from all these pieces, crafting her from shattered pieces, the way we shattered the mother, and I was crafting her back with all these like strength and courage and resilience, like everything. It was the opposite of all the mother. All of my traits were the mother traits. Like my reactivity was her responsiveness. My insecurity was her inner security. My externally seeking was her inner sourcedness. Like she was, my vanity was her deep-seated confidence and self-love. I built her slowly from the opposite. And then it was, what did I need from my mother? What did I wish she had been? What do I wish she had got done for herself? How do I wish she had modeled courage in challenge and in conflict? How do I wish she had modeled love? And then I got to this place where my mother, I was no longer mad at her. I was mad for her, looking at just how much programming and oppression she was under and how she never got to bloom and she never got loved and she never got seen and she never got held and she never got hurt either. And there's a long fucking line of patriarchal oppression that created our mothers to just do the fucking bidding for them, which is to smash our wild feminine, smash our, strength, our courage, our resilience, our fighter. And they did that for the patriarchy because they had that done to them and were told it was love. Don't stick out, you'll die. I'm doing this for you. Like, don't be weird. Don't be gay. Don't be blah, blah, blah. Don't be, always act polite and you'll survive. Stay pretty and polite and you'll survive, and it's killed us.
Mm-hmm. So your relationship with your mother has changed.
For now, she holds me at night. She's never did that in the real world.
Has your journey from maiden to mother influenced the relationships that still live amongst patriarchy, like with your twin sister, with your dad?
Yeah. I mean, after my midlife awakening, I have burned all the veils of between my false self. And if I find any more, I'll keep burning them. And I don't hide for anybody. I just shine as like I'm in the summer of my life. I'm in my, this is my time. And I think just when you have the energy of the mother is the energy of the room. And so if I'm in a room and I'm just shining love and joy and celebration of us being together, that's the energy of the room.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about patriarchy in a more specific way for a second? Because there was a scene in your book. It's a brief scene. You move over it very quickly, but I was like, fucking, I was pretty sickened, actually. Like, so
I was hoping you would be.
You're in the grip of grief and substance abuse, and you start having a panic attack. It sounds like you're like at a club or a bar, and you're having a panic attack between like getting rounds at a bar, and your friend is concerned, but your now ex-fiance, but like then fiance, just rolls his eyes and says, I think rather cruelly, she always does this, these cries for help. So how did you feel then hearing him utter those words, and how do you feel about it now?
Tim. Oh, Tim. So, but that was a hard one because I did love Tim with everything I had, and which was nothing. That's my line about Tim. But he did the best he could, and I think it was the last year where I had just bloated up like Stevie Nicks on Valium, and I had no purpose. I was only now just like his fan groupie wife, pre-wife or whatever. And it was getting really hard to keep me alive. And it was really a moment for me to hear him say that. My editor, I kind of tangled on that. It would really happen sitting on a dirty sidewalk in the East Village in this borrowed dress that was 12 sizes too small for me. And I was in between, I was trying to always get off of these Valiums and I couldn't. And I think that night I was out of them. So I was in between vodka cranberry drinks and I couldn't breathe. And I sat down on the sidewalk. And I know why now I couldn't breathe. The next day I had an interview at Spin Magazine and I would show up hungover without my wallet in the same dress. And they would just be like, no, like I kept trying to get my old life back as I felt it slipping away. And I was just like, I looked like what got spit out of the other end of the rock and roll machine as a woman. Like, if you can imagine, like, it was just like, and I remember he said, oh, she always does it, these cries for help. And, and I think deep within me, something was going, well, then fucking answer them, someone. But like, he couldn't. There was only so much an uninitiated man in our culture could do, and there was a long waiting list of groupies, and who knows? He's happily married now, but there was a cruelness and a coldness that I had romanticized I had glossed over, and it was certainly there.
As a journalist, was that sticky at all for you? Like, did you talk to Tim and be like, hey, I'm going to just drop this scene in here of you being a like class A dick?
He's so funny. I texted him and I was like, I'm writing about you and I'm writing our story and it deserves to be heard. Those kids really tried their damnedest. And he's like, Sarah, what an honor to share our story with the world. I trust anything you say. And then I did send him the book and he's like, I'm so proud of you, but I haven't heard what he thought of it.
Okay. That's great. I mean, maybe he's hearing it through like, I see her crying for help and I can't do more. That's like the generous way I could like read into that. Like knowing that you have this loving context. It's like, okay, that was, I guess that's a way of him.
We had no way to, we didn't know what love was.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So when you consider the growing misogyny, particularly in the American context, I'm in Canada, but it's happening here too. Particularly the repealing of reproductive rights and threats to bodily autonomy, especially of women, people with uteri, trans people. How do you now feel called to direct your energy? Like when or where do you feel most effective in that warrior archetype of battling the patriarchy?
Great question. Thanks for asking. I feel most called to center Black, Indigenous, and women of color leaders. I feel called to, as Bell Hooks says, reform, resurrect intersectional feminism as a political party. I feel compelled to decenter whiteness, decenter hyper-individual white women as, I mean, it's not part of the feminist movement. So I'm talking about intersectional feminism, which is like freedom from oppression for all bodies under patriarchy. And the idea and the core conclusion of, you know, climate crisis being due to colonial racism. And so to center Black women here and Indigenous women here, and specifically women and women of color, is to center the earth. And to center the earth is, and to save the earth, to center Black, Indigenous, women of color is to center also the Great Mother.
Right.
And so Black feminists, so for more white women to divest, for white women to divest from whiteness, to center Black feminist thought and Indigenous policies towards the climate. And really anybody who's in the way, get the fuck out of the way and get behind these Black, Indigenous women leaders, but call to the front an intersectional feminist party, and let's choose our leaders. Because yes, we are all very different. We all have different creeds, different races, different beliefs, different backgrounds, but we can all come together about this one goddamn thing, our earth, the mother of us all, the planet, and home for us all, the home for our children, the creatures, the very air we breathe. We can come together on this. We can and must put everything aside and commune on this one. All of us women give a fucking shit. Yeah, we're mad at each other. We're offended. Blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Who cares? Put it down, maidens. Come together, mothers, and save the planet. So like, we need an intersectional political party, like right now, in my opinion.
Led by Black, Indigenous, people of color.
Yes, with depatriarchalized, decolonized leaders. Yes.
Yeah. How now, as initiated mother, do you cope with grief and rage instead of how you're
feel it all the fucking time. I rage, I scream, I howl, I roar, and then I also weep and cry, and I'm hit the floor, and I share it with my sisters, and I feel it with them. And then I also celebrate that I'm alive, and I feel joy. I let it all happen to me. But grief and rage right now, the rage of the mother, the sacred war, the righteous rage of no, is so powerful as an art form to contain it and to commune together and direct it towards something, to be mad, not at the world, but for this world with our rage, you know? And then the weeping, touching what weeps in us, touching what we've lost in this world and this lies with the world, you know, touching our grief so that we can be with the world's grief. And we cannot birth this new earth before we stop and grieve and say, this has not worked. This world is over. Let us let it go and build the bones. But we now know. Yeah.
Thanks so much for everything you shared, Sarah. I appreciate you diving in and taking us on the journey. I highly recommend people read your book, Maiden to Mother. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
What an honor.
Find the show notes with links to Sarah's work at numinouspodcast.com. And thank you for listening today, my friends. And a special shout out to all you listeners, wherever you are in the world, who are amplifying the work of the women of Iran right now. power to the women and freedom fighters of Iran, all of those fighting for sovereignty right now. Once again, you'll find links in the show notes for ways you can support their efforts. And my friends, The Spirited Kitchen is now in stores. If you like it and you want to let me know, the way to do that is to write a review on Goodreads or Amazon. I'm going to make myself read each and every one. And hey, you know what? If you don't like it, that's fine. If you decide actually it's just really not your jam, I'd love you to tell me in your review on Goodreads or Amazon who you think my book is for. You know, if you're like, it was a 1-star for me, but like anyone who's really into social justice and French cooking would probably like it, then that is an awesome 1-star review. It's honest and it's not mean. If you love it, of course, I deeply appreciate hearing that for sure. And thanks for taking the time, no matter what you rate it. Hey, last thing, if you were hoping to try out the Numinous Network, but you missed the last free week and you're wanting to know like when I'm going to offer one of those again, you need to get on my newsletter. Free week's going to happen again late November. So sign up for my newsletter on my website at carmenspagnola.com. CarmenSpagnola. Until next time, take care.